Welcome back to Mines and Money 2021. Alvaro Peralta with MiningIR. And with me today we have Nigel Robinson of Central Asia Metals. And tell us a little bit about what it's like to be here in London in the person.
Yeah, sure, Alvaro. It's good actually. It's good to see people after all this time being on Zoom and virtual meetings, etc., etc. Physically shake hands and see people and see old people. You know, people I haven't seen for a long time. It's really good to catch up with people, and it's good to see the show itself well populated, really, with a lot of people here. So
yeah, it's a beautiful
it's
energy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Lots
it's
of
positive.
smiles.
It's a degree of positivity which we need as we
Totally.
all pull out of this pandemic, really. So.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And well, let's tell our investor audience a little bit about Central Asia.
Okay, Central Asia Metals, as the name infers, we started out in Kazakhstan, which is in the Central Asian region. Our first project was built in 2012. First started producing cathode copper April 2012. So next year will be our 10th anniversary of production. We raised the money by listing on the London Stock Exchange, the alternative investment market, AIM as it's known. In 2010 we raised $60 million there to build this particular plant. And what the plant is an in situ leaching operation with what's known as an SXEW plant. SXEW stands for solvent extraction, electrowinning. So we take small elements of copper in solution, put them through a plant, and we produce pure cathode copper, which we then sell through our off-taker to, at the moment, to the Turkish market for a wire manufacturer in Turkey. So high quality copper, extremely low cost. We're in the lowest decile of cost for copper producers in the world. And it's been a very, very good project, a great project for the management team and a great project, I think, for the investors. It's got very strong margins. Our half-year results to 30th of June 2021, which is the last public results that we put out, we had an EBITDA margin of 80% at Kounrad, and we generate very strong cash flows, producing copper at around about $1,200 per tonne at a C1 cash cost level.
That's great.
And copper this year, as many people know, has been nudging close to $10,000 per tonne for a lot of the year. So a really positive, profitable project, which has been a great experience.
Well, copper's certainly one of the ones that has room to grow still.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, very few operating mines here today, and so it's great to be in front of one. and tell me a little bit about, are you guys able to keep up with demand that's out there?
Well, we're a really small player in the copper market. I think the copper market is something of the magnitude of 22 million tonnes of copper per annum, and we're producing at the level of around about 14,000 tonnes. So obviously a really small player, but small sometimes is beautiful.
Yes.
And what you see is what you get in many ways at Kounrad, because it's processing of old waste dumps. So this is ore that was effectively mined historically and put on the surface by the previous owners, which would have been Kazakh State and then Kazakh Mist themselves. And we've won the tender for that many years ago now, 12 years ago, so whatever, to process that waste into actual copper. So we're producing highly profitable copper from waste dumps at Kazakhstan, Kounrad. On the back of the success from that project, we went, invested and bought from another company an underground lead and zinc mine in North Macedonia, what's known as the Sasa mine. We bought that 4 years ago, late November 2017, so we've owned that for 4 years now. Not quite as profitable as Kounrad, but a great operation, low capex, low operating costs, different metals obviously, but it's a good operation, and you know, we acquired that for $402.5 million back in November 2017. Half of it was debt, and half of it was equity that we raised in the London market, additional equity investments. We've now, in August next year, we'll have paid all that debt off. That was about $200 million worth of debt. So we'll have delevered the balance sheet to be back to a debt-free position. And we're paying strong dividends off the back of both of those two operations.
Wow, that's great. So what I'm hearing here is it'll be debt-free, cash flow positive, some dividend available.
Absolutely. We have a dividend policy. We've always had a dividend policy from when we started production at Kounrad back in April 2012, as I said before. Initially that was a policy based purely for Kounrad. Then when we acquired Sasa, we changed the dividend policy to we pay back to shareholders a range of 30% to 50% of the free cash flow that we generate from those two operations.
Amazing,
yeah.
Amazing. And of course today in the market that we're seeing, dividends is where the investors are turning to because they want safety and they want cash flow.
I think so. I think you're right, Alvaro. I mean, what do investors want? They want two things, really, don't they? They want the dividend. They also want the growth.
Yeah, capital growth.
And I
is
think
nice.
we honour the first promise there, dividends, and we always have done. I think we've paid back nearly $220 million in dividends since 2012 when we started paying dividends. So that's a very strong and positive story for people who are income investors. What we probably haven't quite got in the portfolio at the moment is the growth element, because Kounrad is a limited life project out to 2034 still, so a fairly long life and predictable, yes. And as I said before, what you see is what you get. Sasa, maybe not quite the same case because it's an underground mine, so we would expect to find a bit more mineralisation as we go lower, but I don't think it's going to be a major game changer for the company, so to speak. So
and yet low risk at the same time.
But low risk, but not massive growth potential. So what, as a company, we're now trying to do is we pay off the debt, is look for the next opportunity to invest in and grow the business beyond where we currently are today. From solid foundations, really.
I'm really curious to know, unlike many of the companies that are here today, being operational requires a different type of team. So why don't you give me an idea of what's the team behind all of this that finds these opportunities and then actually operates the opportunity?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I mean, the team, in terms of finding the opportunities, that's a real challenge, because you have to go where the geology is. You can't open another branch of Camel in Newcastle, for example, and do the same thing. You have to go where geography tells you and geology tells you, and you might not like the jurisdiction, you might not like the state of the project in terms of how far it's been developed, the way it's been engineered. So there's a number of factors come into that, and it is very much, I think, opportunistic. There's certain parts of the world that we as a company probably would not want to go and invest in, and there's other parts that we favour, places that we know, like Kazakhstan and the Central Asian region, like the Balkans, like Europe, comfortable in certain countries in Africa, for example. So it's a bit opportunistic and finding the right opportunities. But as I say, we have a solid foundation from which to grow. We have a very good track record on delivering on what we say we'll deliver upon. And we also have a very good investor base. I mean, around about 65-70% of our shareholder base is institutions in London who followed us through thick and thin. So I think they would follow us again when we find that right opportunity. We're not in a rush. We have got a long life left on the two assets that we own, out to 2034 and 2037 in the case of Sasa, as I say. So that's something that the management team is working on collectively in many ways, not one individual lead generation or whatever in other businesses. In terms of managing the projects, when we took on Sasa, for example, we didn't have the skills in-house for the mining, the underground mining. So we acquired those in the marketplace, and we've got a very good COO now. He's a mining engineer of many years' experience, and you build your team up around the requirements that you've got. And as with all businesses, we're all getting a little bit older, so you need to look for young blood to come in.
Succession planning is such a crucial part of a business.
Absolutely crucial, yeah. And getting young people involved in the business. I mean, I think in the whole mining industry there has been a lack of investment maybe over the past 10-15 years of younger engineers, and we need to do our part where we can and get those. They're not going to provide all the solutions in the short term, but they're the future of the business, really.
Absolutely, and investors do get a little queasy when they don't see the up-and-comers easily accessible and trained and ready to fill those shoes. And even when they fill the shoes, there's still a big growth curve to go from there.
Yeah, and it's a challenge for all businesses. It's not just our challenge. It's a challenge in the industry.
Yes, all around the world, this whole succession planning is a huge thing.
But I think as a company, though, we do have a good team. We have a good, management team that manages Kounrad, a good management team that manages Sasa, and a good board of directors that is very supportive, very experienced, very knowledgeable, and they provide the right level of mentorship that we need as an executive team and develop our younger team as well.
Well, that's great to hear. One of the things that's really interesting in everything you're saying, it sounds like the work that you're doing in Kazakhstan is actually reducing carbon footprint.
Yes.
And it's an environmentally friendly process, which is not the kind of thing that come to mind for most people when they're thinking about mining.
No.
So tell us a little bit about, is that an initiative that is a part of the value system of the company, that you look for opportunities where you're able to environmentally friendly move forward?
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is a real challenge for all businesses, in not just in the mining sector.
All sectors.
I mean, sustainability,
we all have cell phones and
ESG,
computers, and
we all know the focus that's been from COP26 in Glasgow, and all companies are looking at it, ourselves included. We're quite well advanced in that regard. We've put out 2 sustainability reports now, in addition to our annual report, so focused on sustainability matters. so the community, environment, your social
Right.
license to operate, how you deal with your people, how you deal with governance, etc., etc. So we've put out 2 the last one being to GRI standards. But as with all these things, we're looking at a draft. We've got a board meeting next Friday to look at a draft greenhouse gas emissions strategy, effectively, and how can we reduce our footprint by. We've just signed a new renewable energy contract, for example, in North Macedonia with our supplier.
Right.
So we're guaranteeing renewable energy there. Kazakhstan, is very much I hate to say it, a fossil fuel country, basically, and most of the power generation is from coal.
Yes.
So that's a negative in some ways, but we'll need to see what can we do ourselves, around providing electricity to the plant, and we're looking at a solar farm nearby. I don't think it can provide all the needs, but what we can do, we'll try and do. We can't do everything.
It has become, in the mining industry particularly, it's become a hybrid model, right? You do what you can. There's solar, there's wind, there's battery.
And I think it's practical. It's as a company, from a production point of view, I think our investor base has followed us and likes the fact that we deliver on what we say we'll do. Same with sustainability goals. I think what we should do is put out the goals that are achievable and have a route to actually achieve those goals, rather than some kind of aspirational goals that we know maybe we can't achieve, because we do operate in Kazakhstan.
Right.
Some people find that a negative. I can't do anything about that,
Yes.
but I'll do what I can to mitigate that. And what is positive about what we do in Kazakhstan, we're processing from waste for a start off, and also we're producing copper, which is probably one of the better metals for a sustainable world in the future. So
Absolutely.
It's a great metal to be
Yes.
in.
Can be reused over and over and over again.
And we're
which
doing
is very
similar
wonderful.
things at Sasa, to be honest with Alvaro, where we're looking at changing the mining method. That's for other reasons, to do with the efficiency of mining, safety, but also it's got a real positive effect on the environment, because we're putting a lot of the tailings that are the end product, if you like, of trying to get the metal into the concentrate form. There's a lot of waste involved in that process.
Yes, of course.
Putting a lot of that waste back underground and storing it in dry stack tailings facilities, which is far more environmentally friendly than the way it's been stored in the past. So lots of initiatives, as I say, in both Kazakhstan and in North Macedonia, but things that we can control and deliver upon, rather than just aspirational targets that maybe we would fail upon, to be honest with you.
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity. Where would investors go to find out more information about Central
Well,
Asia?
we've got a good website, Central Asia Metals PLC website. You can look on there. That's got all our annual reports, investor information, etc., and information about the management team, the operations, etc. So that's probably your first port of call, I would suggest. Or give us a call in the office somewhere. We're offices in Piccadilly, London offices, and always happy to speak to potential investors.
That's excellent. Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of Mines and Money. And thank you for having us in your wonderful city. It's absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
Nothing like Christmas time in London.
No, fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.